Hello, my friend. On today's episode, I'm here talking with Ben Pickard, and we are talking about one of our favorite topics, which is planning. And we are going to go through our step-by-step process for quarterly planning for gyms. And we think this is one of the most important habits you develop as a gym owner and leader is getting clear on your goals every 12 weeks. So if you don't have a quarterly planning process or want to start one in the new year, this is a great episode for you. And if you have a quarterly process and you want to improve it and make it a little bit better, you also have a lot of great takeaways from this episode. So keep on listening. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to give you a quick shout out to a company we really love working out. It's called VAs for Gyms, sometimes called Media Machine. And we love them so much because for many of you who run a gym out there or a fitness studio, you know that you wear many, many hats as the owner. And sometimes there's a lot of tasks you need to get done that really don't belong on your plate. And you need just a part-time administrative person to help out. That's exactly what VAs for Gyms does. They give you access to high quality virtual assistants to get some of that grunt work done in your business that maybe you don't love or want to make time for. So if you want to learn more about VAs for Gyms, go visit the website. It's vamediamachine.com. Link down below in the show notes. Tell them we sent you, and they will take good care of you. We're not just a proponent of this business. We use them. We use VA teams from this company, both at Mark Fisher Fitness and at Business for Unicorns. So we're a big fan. Ben also uses them too. And so go check them out, vamediamachine.com. Ben, welcome to the podcast, my friend. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just enjoying the change of pace after spending time at Michael's house, which is also known as the Pauling Pines Resort and Spa, which is the name I've given it.
100%. I know we just talked, I think maybe it was the previous podcast. I don't know which order these are all coming out in, but that we just had a 2-day annual planning retreat at my house, which we've named Pauling Pines because I'm in a town called Pauling. And it was fantastic. I had so much fun. It was you, me, Mark, Pete, and a consultant named Carly, who we have come in and help us with our planning. I had a blast. What was your experience like?
I thought it was great. As the listeners probably know by this point, I love a plan, even though I'm aware of planning fallacies and plans never work, but planning always does. I'm a firm believer in that. But also just like spending the time together, particularly for us when it's a remote business. And we see each other at retreats, but we see each other in person for 7 days a year.
Yep.
And thinking of our gym owner listeners, gyms are also one of those businesses that are sometimes open at 5 or 6 a.m. and close at 7 or 8 or 9 p.m. Not all your staff overlap for lunch. And it's important to do good quality work together, as we did with annual planning. But it's also great to hang out in the hot tub and have a drink and just get to know each other. It builds trust. It's social capital. It's so important when not everything's going to go right.
Yeah, 100%. We talk so much on this podcast about the importance of relationships for leadership, for leaders, for leadership, for teams. And we're no exception over here at Business for Unicorns. We need to work on our friendships and have good relationships. And you're right. We don't see each other that often. These retreats are a really great way for us to come together and do good work and get aligned about our goals and where we're heading, but also just fucking chill and have a meal together and hang out. I think, I'm glad that you feel that way because I think it's such a valuable use of our time. Which actually is an unintended but useful segue into today's topic. And so we talk a lot on this podcast about planning. I think, Ben, you and I have done maybe a few different podcasts on the topic. But we wanted to circle back to the idea of quarterly planning today and walk you all through some of the basics of how we think all of you should reset your plans every quarter. Right. And this is an idea that's, not just ours, but it's been popularized by things like the Entrepreneur Operating System, the book Traction, many of you know, all have this recommendation that every year you sit down and create some annual goals, and every quarter you sit down and create what they often call rocks, but we call projects that are the most important things you're going to finish over the next 12 weeks. And so we want to kind of walk through what does a quarterly planning meeting look like and how do you do it, because we think it's so important. Often in our playbook for this, we have a quote by Brian Tracy that says a goal without a plan is only a dream. And I think that's just so apt so many times in our gym and all of our businesses, right? We have a lot of like dreams for things we want to accomplish, but until we sit down and actually put pen to paper, or in this case, fingers to keyboard, right? And write down what exactly we're going to accomplish and by when, that it doesn't actually get done, right? It's much less likely to get done unless we really put some parameters on it. So before we get into the nuts and bolts, just big picture, Ben, what value has quarterly planning added to your work as a gym owner?
Oh my goodness, so much. I mean, this sounds like I'm making a sales pitch, but like we don't sell quarterly planning. It's part of Unicorn Society. We have nothing to sell you unless you want to join Unicorn Society and do this. It's making more money in less time with less stress and more organization. Like that is absolutely true. Like to maybe make that a little more tactical, it's here's what we've committed to doing this quarter, which includes what we've committed to not doing this quarter, the due dates when we want to have it done by, and who's accountable for it. So instead of the like, hey, Michael, how's that thing going? Oh, okay. Oh, what did I say? And it's just kind of like a shotgun of whatever, whenever. Yeah. We're now like, cool, that's where he's at on the thing. I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so critical to get everyone on the same page about where are we heading, who's doing what, by when, and how, right? And like that gets answered when you do quarterly planning. So let's dive in, kind of walk people through what are the steps to doing a really great kind of annual planning meeting or retreat.
Yeah, well, step one is to book it with your team.
Yeah.
And I know this kind of goes without saying, but it's the step that most people miss because they're like, yes. I'm just going to fit it in. You probably need 4 hours, possibly 5, maybe 8. We did a 2-day thing, but we have a facilitator, so it's a little bit different. Like in a vacuum, you would book off 1 day a quarter with your leadership team and do this. And this is so important that the last step of mine and Leisha at my gym's quarterly planning is book next quarter's planning. We do not leave planning until it is booked. Because if you book, whole day off your gym, I get it. There's revenue to make, things to happen, fires to put out. And we all know that if you book ahead, it's easy to make it happen. If you try to fit it in, it's borderline impossible.
Yeah. So even at Business for Unicorns, I think right now, sitting here in December, don't we have all of 2025 dates on our calendars already?
Well, in spirit of transparency, I'm still in the process of confirming next December's, but we're thinking about next December right now.
You got a little time, but still, we put it on for the whole year in advance. We do the same thing at Mark Fisher Fitness, so there's no excuse that it's not done. It's on the calendar. If we have to move it as we get closer, maybe we'll move it. But it's the most important thing you do as an owner is to keep the vision clear, keep the team aligned. So I think that's critical. For folks who maybe are a little bit turned off by the term leadership team, maybe they have a smaller team, and certainly like you at Lean Strong, you really do this with like one other person. Can you just walk through who needs to be part of quarterly planning? It's often not a full team activity. Often it's, so go ahead.
Yeah, I actually recommend, I would love to find a version of this that includes the whole team, and I've yet to actually find that. Because in a small business, you don't want to be like, ooh, we're the leadership team. We're better and fancier than you, and we make more money and blah. It's not about that at all. It's really if you manage a core function of the business. So in a regular gym, this could be a head coach and the owner. It could be an owner and a GM and a head coach. It could be an office manager could be in charge of that. Could be part of it if they're doing a lot of that core function stuff.
Yep.
Technically an accountant manages core function, but don't know about your accountant. But for most gyms, it's probably going to be like the owner and 1, maybe 2 other people from the list of office manager, head coach, or lead coach, whatever you want to call it. Yep. And a GM if you have them.
Yeah, great. So let's just say they got this first thing down. They know who they want to have at the meeting. They got it scheduled far in advance, so it's a priority on everyone's schedule. What else?
Well, then you really need to have a process. Mm-hmm. You're not just sitting down and let's talk about the business. Right? It does not work. Every meeting should have an agenda, if nothing else, even more so when it's like the most expensive meeting you're going to have all quarter. It's not just viewed through that lens. It's actually that is way more valuable than that opportunity cost. But you don't just want to sit down and talk about it. You want to make sure you have a structured agenda. And happy to share kind of what's in our agenda because it's honestly relatively simple. This isn't a complicated process that you need to figure out. It's a simple process that you just need to practice. It's no different than probably somebody coming into your gym and saying, my knees hurt when I squat. I can't squat anymore. And you make a couple changes that to you are simple. And to them, like, holy crap, my legs don't hurt anymore. It is that for business and it can be that impactful. So generally speaking, you want to start with some wins, get everyone on the same page, reflect on your year. What are all the collective wins for your team, your business over the last year or quarter if you're doing this quarterly? Then you want to dive into like, where did we say we want to go? So you're either going to create or review your 3-year goals as well as your 1-year goals. And I won't get too deep into that just for the sake of time, but you need goals. Otherwise, where the hell are you going? Then you want to dive into, what do we want to accomplish this quarter? I'm actually doing this all from memory. I've done this a number of times. Let me know if I missed anything. The next one is, what do we want to do this quarter? And I will argue, I think a hill I'm willing to die on, or pretty close to die on, is this is more the art of what you're saying no to what you're saying yes to. And like spirit of transparency, even at the BFU quarterly planning, our facilitator got us to write down a whole bunch of stuff we wanted to do and when we think they needed to happen. And lo and behold, we had 20 things we were going to do in Q1, and I think one thing we were going to do in Q3. Sure. We're not immune to this. But by getting them out on the table, it's like, here's the things that are going to be the most impactful for the business. Maybe it's getting your marketing systems up and running, or a new website, or improving your sales process, or adding a nutrition component, or it doesn't matter, whatever it is. Pick probably 3-ish, maybe 4-ish things that are the most important for your business to get you from where you are now to where your goals are.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I think it's a really good summary. I'll just highlight what I think are the most important things, which is you got to have some big picture goals, some annual goals. Where are you going to get in a year? Even at super high level, what revenue, what you want your revenue to look like in 1 year and 3 years? What do you want your total number of clients to be in 1 year and 3 years? What kind of profit or total owners compensation do you want to make in 1 year and 3 years? You got to have some big picture goals for where you're heading so that your quarterly projects can push you in that direction, right? The quarterly projects are the work that helps you get there. And I love what you said about the meeting. The meeting has to have a structure, right? And we don't expect all of you to, listen to this podcast and be kind of facilitation wizards overnight, right? So you might need to do a little research, right? Obviously you can join Unicorns ID. We'll tell you exactly what the fuck to do. But if not, go do a little research. Maybe read the book Traction, maybe go on YouTube and look at how to organize and facilitate a quarterly planning meeting. But Ben laid out for you, I think, a great overview, which is quarterly planning meetings should be a little bit of a backwards glance at the previous quarter. What did we do that worked and didn't work? What are our lessons learned? And should be a forward glance. Like, what are we committing today to doing in the next 12 weeks? And we want to pick 3 to 5 things that really represent the most important work to be done that gets us closer to our goals. And so I think that's a fantastic overview. So let's assume now that they got all that, right? It's scheduled, the right people are in the room, there's a clear agenda for it, they have some clear annual goals. What else matters in having a successful quarterly planning meeting?
Making sure you do it and you stay focused and present. I feel like that should go without saying, but we all know what it's like to be in a meeting with someone who we think their head is in outer space. And it's like, no, this is what we do. Like, to the point where don't answer client emails today. Don't answer staff messages today. You could even tell your staff, like, this is a real emergency, phone me. If not, I won't be getting to it until tomorrow. And then I think it's also the way Carly's worded it, our facilitator. Everyone needs to wear their adult pants. Part of, verbatim, part of quarterly planning, I think of this as you are acting on behalf of what's best for the business to get it to its goals. And that means some of the things you're going to do aren't necessarily the thing that is your favorite, but we're doing it in service of an entity that is greater than ourselves to serve a community that is greater than ourselves. So it's the time for speaking with candor, not taking feedback personally, practicing delivering things with compassion and candor, not just, you're kind of a dick sometimes. Like, I don't know if that's going to be productive, but it's making sure that you don't leave those like nagging things unsaid.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so critical, right? Because you can't move the ball forward if there's all this stuff holding you back that you're not talking about. Right? If there's relationships in the gym that are not working, if there's skill sets that are missing and no one's talking about it, if there's big question marks that are kind of unanswered about how you're going to do what at the gym and no one's talking about it. So I love that, right? If you're going to have these meetings, and you should consistently follow through with them every single quarter, you got to put your big kid pants on, right? And show up ready to do the work, ready to make decisions that are maybe not in your own personal best interest 100% of the time, but might require some sacrifice to do what's best for the growth or the development of the business. And I think that's often what true leadership looks like, right? In this podcast, sometimes we talk about, one style of leadership, which is servant leadership, which is really putting other people's needs first in some cases. That's not to say that you as the owner or leadership team, that your needs don't matter. They do. It's just that this meeting is about asking yourselves collectively as a team, what does the business need? What are the things that this business needs, the projects we can accomplish together that will move us closer to our collective goals? And sometimes that's maybe not your favorite project, but it's a real kind of, to use Brian Tracy, it's a real like eat the frog moment. It's a just fucking do it kind of moment to say like, listen, I don't love this, but the most important thing in this next quarter is organizing all our SOPs into one place and making sure everyone knows how to access them. Yeah. Not the sexiest project, but is the thing that's holding you back from growing? Maybe, right? And I think that's really useful. Yeah. And, you've been doing this a lot and you've helped so many people facilitate quarterly planning, Ben, over the years, and you're going to keep helping. And what are any other common pitfalls or things that you see that people should look out for?
Yeah. One of the major ones is once you make your plan, so this is post meeting, I'm moving to that stage now.
Yeah.
We call it a mission control meeting, but you should have a meeting about where things are at every week.
Yeah.
Again, structured agenda. It's not intended to be a sales pitch, but obviously you'll get it if you were interested in joining Unicorn Society. But you can also find the shit for free online, and we'll still be able to help you whether you ever join or not.
Yep.
But there's a touch point. EOS calls it a level 10 meeting. So if you Google level 10, you'll find an agenda, and it's making sure you touch base on these things because inevitably, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. You're going to get punched in the face at some time this quarter. Hopefully not literally, but definitely by your business. Yeah. And that's where your opportunities are to like touch base with people, ask for help, reshuffle things. Sometimes you have to kill a project. Sometimes you need to add one that you didn't realize was a project. But keep this the front and center thing, because the idea is that come hell or high water, these are the things that you want to get done. And you're going to give it your all to get it done, whether you win or not. And that's only going to happen if you're bringing it up with like frequency and consistency. So in addition to this meeting, it then follows with the next meeting. And I know I've talked about this a lot, but it's like our level 10 at BFU, my level 10 with my wife, different topic, and my level 10 with Leisha are the three most important meetings in my week. If those happen, everything else will happen. But if those don't happen, this isn't always true, but like generally shit's fucked.
Yeah. And I think this is such a critical maybe note to end this episode on, which is, if you are having quarterly projects and then you all don't talk about those quarterly projects until your next quarterly meeting, I promise you 99% of shit you said you were going to do didn't get done. Right? Like it's just not how we work as teams or as humans. Right. And so after you finish quarterly planning, and you have clear projects with clear people driving those projects, you have to have some regular cadence of meetings. And even if you don't have a weekly mission control meeting with your leadership team, at the very least have one-on-one meetings with the people who are responsible for activating this work. Right. If you have one-on-one meetings as the owner with people who are driving these projects forward, and those one-on-one meetings are weekly or bi-weekly, great. Those are your moments every single week to touch base on, are we moving in the right direction or not? All these projects on track or off track? Are you stuck? Do you need help? And even that, I think, is a fantastic way to make sure that your quarterly projects aren't just promises that you make that no one ever keeps. Because that is a fastest way to derail the morale of a team, is to say you're going to do all these things and then no one ever does it. Who wants to be on that team? It's fucking maddening. Yeah. Any final words of wisdom for our folks about quarterly planning before we wrap things up here, Ben?
Yeah, just a quickie. If this feels daunting, it's no more daunting than someone who hasn't exercised coming into your gym, or an athlete who's scared about making it to the next level coming in to ask for help. So my best advice is, like, regardless of how you feel, like, recognize and acknowledge those feelings, and then tell them to fuck off for a little bit and just do this anyways. Because once you get a few reps under your belt, I do think this is part of the evolution of a gym owner, that if you want to have a bigger business, you're going to need to learn to manage, a bigger business. And what gets you from A to B almost never gets you to C. And this is one of the most important steps. We wouldn't be harping on it if we didn't think it was critical.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Let's leave it there, my friends. Go schedule your quarterly planning for all of 2025 and do it. And as always, if you want more help with it, come join Unicorn Society. We'll help you do it every step of the way. All right. Well, let's leave it there. Friends, another quick reminder, if you want some help with a virtual assistant team, if you want some people out in the world helping you remotely to do some tasks at your gym, go talk to our friends at VAs for Gyms. It's vamediamachine.com. Links down in the bio. Check them out. And thanks for the great conversation, Ben. I'll see you on the next one.